Hi, I'm Joe Weiss, one of the directors of Learn Real English, and today I'm here to speak with you about the fifth rule to speaking excellent English. But before we start with Rule 5, I want you to remember back just a few days ago. I spoke with you about Rule number 2. And you remember that Rule number 2 was don't study English grammar. Since that time, you may have been wondering, well, how am I going to learn to speak English properly if I don't study English grammar? Well, today I'm going to talk to you about that. So, how is it that we do this? Well, there is a special technique, and it's very easy, and research has shown that it is the best way to learn English grammar, or grammar for any language even. So, what is this technique? Well, it's called point of view stories, or point of view mini stories. A mini story is just a small story. So how is it that we use these point of view stories to learn English grammar? What we do is we start with a small story, a mini story, and then we listen to a number of different points of view for this very story. And by point of view, I mean that we change something in the story, like we change the time that the story is being told, or we change the person who is actually telling the story. So I can keep describing this method, but I think the best way for me to demonstrate it is by using an example. So, let's start with an example. Now, when I usually teach these in a classroom, I'll start by telling a story in the present tense. So let's start there. Okay, here's our mini story told in the present tense. There is a man. His name is John. John goes to the store. John buys a shirt. The shirt is blue. Okay, so we have our mini story now. So you listen to that, you make sure you understand it. So your next question may be, how are we going to use this story to learn English grammar? And that's a good question. And as I said before, we're going to hear this story told in a number of different ways, from different points of view. To start, let's change the time. Let's pretend that this story is happening 2 years ago. So we'll hear it in the past. Okay, let's start. There was a man. His name was John. 2 years ago, John went to the store. He bought a shirt. The shirt was blue. Okay, so now we've heard our mini story told from a different point of view. In this case, we heard the story told as if it happened in the past, or in this case, 2 years ago. Now, I should make sure that I say that when you see me teaching in the classroom, or you come to one of our seminars, or you listen to some of our audio lessons, you'll hear a story that's much longer. It will be much more difficult. There'll be much more details. Right now, we just want to have a story that's short so I can present an example to you. Alright, so at this point, we now have 2 versions of the story. So what you would do is, you'd listen to each version of this story. You'd listen to it many, many times. And when you're listening, you're only listening for understanding. You just want to make sure that you understand the story. And as you do that, you will be learning grammar, because the grammar is different in each one of these stories. But you don't need to know that. All you have to do is relax and listen to each one of the stories and make sure that you understand it. We can also use another point of view for this story. Let's take a look at the story told, say, in the future, 1 year from now. So think 1 year from now. Imagine we're 1 year from now. Okay, here's the story. There will be a man. His name will be John. John will go to the store. John is going to buy a shirt. The shirt will be blue. Okay, so now we have 3 different versions of the same story. So you'd listen to each one. You'd listen to them many times. You'd listen to the first one, which is the mini story. You'd listen to the one that happened in the past. You'd listen to the one that happens 1 year from now, or the one in the future. And you will begin to see how each story changes. And you'll only be listening to the story to make sure you understand it. You will not be thinking about grammar. That's not what you're supposed to do. But you will be learning grammar. We can even hear this story in one other point of view. Let's this time hear the story as if the main character, John, is telling the story himself. So here's the story. I am a man. My name is John. I go to the store. I buy a shirt. The shirt is blue. So you can hear how the story has changed. Now, especially that we've heard 4 different versions of this same story. So, of course, you would listen to each one of these stories. You'd listen to them many times. And as you're listening, you're only listening for understanding. You're not trying to remember what verb tense the story is in, or if there's an irregular version of one of the verbs that's being used. No, no, no. We don't want you to think about any grammar rules like that. All you're doing is you're listening to the story for understanding, and it's easy and relaxing. That's why this technique is so easy and powerful, because you learn so many grammar rules without having to study or memorize these grammar rules. They come to you automatically. As you're listening and you listen for understanding, you learn the grammar automatically. And what that means is when you go to speak, the grammar will automatically come to you. You won't have to think about it. You won't have to analyze English. It will just come to you easily. You'll be able to speak more confidently. People will be able to hear how differently you sound when you speak, how much more correct you sound, how much more confident you sound. And that's what we really want. Okay, so remember, rule number 5 is use point of view stories. They are a powerful method of using these stories to actually learn grammar without having to memorize any grammar. Okay, that's all for now. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.